Coming up on the Amazing Art Show, popping flowers. Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Amazing Art Show. I'm your host, Angie Beam, and today we are working on some popping flowers. And I'm going to go over with you what we're going to need. And I'm going to kind of give you some options today on things that you might want to use for this project. You are going to need some white paper. It doesn't matter if it is big or small, but you will be creating like two pretty large, like it probably as big as your head, flower shapes. So if you have smaller paper, obviously you'll need a couple sheets so that you can get them on there. If you've got a bigger piece, you can probably fit both of them. You also are going to need maybe mom or grandma or your aunt or somebody might have like some scrap paper. You're going to need a piece that is strictly black or white, okay? And any kind of a little combination of that would be okay, but you want no color on it really. You just want it some kind of a black and white combination, some kind of a little pattern on there is fine. And then you're also going to need just a regular black construction paper. You're going to need colored pencils. You will need glue. And then some of the things that are some things that you might want to think about are going to be some 3D little stickers that will kind of pop the flowers up off of the surface. So these are called 3D foam squares. And so that's an option as well. And then an ink pad with just like some letters, like to try to spell out things. So I've just got, you know, different letters that you just, you know, stamp it and make, you know, whatever you want to spell. So that's also an option. And then also the squirtable paints that we've used a lot here on the show, those would be great for this project. Even like some glitter would be really awesome for this project as well. And I'll kind of show you some of those other options as we get a little further along into the show. And then last thing will be scissors and glue stick. And that should be it. Sounds like a lot, but it's really pretty common things that you probably have around the house. All right, so to start today, Georgia O'Keeffe, who's one of my favorite artists. I have many, but she's one of my favorites. She is most well known for her extremely large close-up views of different kinds of flowers and things like that. And we're not going to get quite as close up as Georgia O'Keeffe did, but we are going to be doing like really incredibly large flower shapes. So I want you to do at least two. And one of them, I would like for you to have the whole flower on there, but then the other one, an option is to just kind of do a corner piece where it just kind of comes out from the corner and just kind of takes up the corner. So it's not the full flower, just like a quarter of it, or maybe a little bit more. So that's where we're going to start today. And so I want you to think not necessarily realistic. I want you to think more whimsical. So on your flowers, I mean, they can be somewhat realistic looking. I don't want them to be like totally crazy, but I would like for you to have some realism there. All right, so I'm going to start, I think, on my full flower. And so I'm just going to kind of start with some lines that kind of come out from the center and make kind of like a petal shape. And I would like for my petals, like I said, to be somewhat realistic. So I'm going to tuck some of them behind others. And I'm not going to make them perfect because even though flowers are terribly beautiful, they all have little flaws, which are what kind of make them really special. And let's see, I'm going to put a little more of a space between this one. All right, and then I want you to think of some kind of an interesting center for your flower. And so I'm actually going to do kind of a, I don't know, kind of looks like little fingers kind of coming out from the center. And then I'm going to have some other, I'm just going to kind of, as I go towards the center, I'm just going to get kind of smaller and smaller. So I'm kind of working my way that direction. And anything goes really for the center of your flower. And the petals, which I'll go more into depth in a second, but just so you can kind of start getting in the mindset, we're going to be filling the inner parts of your flower with just lines. And I want them to be very organic. This looks like, that cracks me up. It kind of looks like a little, like a pom-pom or something. But I like it. We're going to roll with it. It just kind of made me giggle for a second. You know, sometimes when you're doing art, sometimes you'll make mistakes like that, but then they kind of work. So this is kind of one of those times for me. So, all right, so then my lines that are going to go inside, I do not want to break out my ruler and do these super straight lines, because you typically do not find very straight lines in nature. They're very organic and they are moving and not perfectly straight. So don't worry about that. And I don't want you to like obsess about, I know how some of you get, and you like really lock in on getting those lines just perfect. That would be my husband. I'm more of a graphic person, and so he really likes to get them tight and straight. But we're going more flowy and whimsical and organic. So I'm going to just kind of start with just a couple lines, and then I want to have some of the lines closer together, some of them farther apart, some of them will be thicker, some of them will be thinner. So I want a lot of good variety. I don't want them to all look exactly the same. So kind of keep that in mind. So usually what I do so that it doesn't get too patterny is I will kind of do 2 lines, and then I'll do another line right beside it, and then I'll kind of come in and split the difference. And I'll come in here and split the difference. Same thing on this other end. And then I'll just kind of pick some random places where I will go in and add, you know, some other lines that kind of come down in between those other ones that I had. And I'm just going to kind of fill those in. All right, so I would keep doing this until I get my lines pretty full and my petals are full. And like I said, not really a pattern. I mean, it will create a pattern, but it's going to be more of a random kind of a pattern. So I'm going to put this one to the side because I want to show you the other one. All right, so this one, I'm going to change it up a little from my example here in a minute, but I'm going to do this one on the corner. And so with this one, I'm going to start on the corner, and I'm going to kind of do a curving line that will kind of be the center part. And just to do something kind of whimsical and fun, I'm going to just fill it with little circles that are, I like to say they kiss, they just touch. And so they're going to be just right up next to the next one. There should barely be any space. And because we were talking about variety and making things, you know, unique, I'm not making all the circles the same size. And here in a minute, I may just blow your mind and come in with a ginormous one. There it happened. Mind blown, I'm sure. All right, so I'm just going to keep filling in until I have this whole shape filled in. Okay, so we'll pretend like I've already done that. And then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to actually do like some just little small petals. And I'm going to, some of them may be bigger, fatter, skinnier than the others, and that's okay. And then from there, I'm going to come out here and start working on my petal shapes. And I would like for these petal shapes to look different than the other flower that we will be working on. So actually what I'm going to be doing is with this one, I'm going to really put my lines really close together. So I'm going to do, I'm sorry, let me say that again. On this first one that I did, I had, my lines were really, really close together. On this one, I'm sorry, I want you to spread them out. So don't put them like all really super close together. Some of them can be close together, but then spread some out to where you've got, you know, larger gaps of space. Okay, so more kind of like that. So I've got, you know, big spaces, and then with this one here, I've got this, they're really tight and close together. Okay, all right, so I'm going to put those to the side, and my other piece of paper that I'm about to bring over is larger, so everything's all on the same page. And you know, I just remembered, I forgot to tell you Sharpies, but we always use Sharpies. So if you don't know that we're going to be using Sharpies when we start this project, you haven't been tuning in. So Sharpies, and I would like, if you can, to have a super, super thin one and then just regular. And so a couple things that I want to point out when you start outlining everything. I want you on the outside of your flower, I want you to do a thick line. And this, for some reason, is kind of challenging to my kids. So let me show you how I do that. Whenever I start to outline the shape, I just go in and I just outline it regular. And then I'm going to come back here. Just regular outline, nothing too crazy. All right. Now I want the very outer line to be thick, all right? And sometimes my kids, we have a hard time figuring out what that means. So I would describe it, the line is thicker, it's fatter. Instead of being super, super skinny, it's going to be thick, all right? So the way you can accomplish that is to go right back where you started, and this time you're gonna run your line right next to it. And if you end up with a little space in between there, that's awesome, okay? If you don't, that's okay too. And you're just gonna re-outline just to the outside of where you had outlined before. And then I can come back in here, and where I have little spots that are left open, I'm gonna fill that in. Got a few over here. And you also want your lines to be really nice and smooth. So if you happen to get a little bumpy place, just go back and fix it. So just take your marker and just run back over that line. If you need to drop the marker down a tad bit so that it, you know, covers that bumpiness, that's great too, okay? So you're kind of getting the idea. So when I first outlined it, the line was, it had a thinner line. So you can see just from the little bit that I did, you know, you end up with, you know, you've got this thinner line. So you can see a big difference between the two, and it really makes your petals stand out. So, so that's what I want you to do when you're outlining around the edges of your petals. And you're going to do that on both of the flowers. And then the next thing I wanted to point out to you was when you're doing the larger, more spread out lines like this one here, you know, the thick marker works excellent because it gives you a nice thick line, shows up really well, works perfect. But when you start to do, I'm going to put this under here because my table's bumpy. When you start to do these that are super tight and close together, what'll happen is your marker's so thick that all this down here towards the bottom will just kind of all run together, and we don't want that. So that's where your thin marker is going to come in. And so you would outline, you know, like I did here, but then I'm going to come in with my lines, and I'm going to run them tight and kind of close together. And you want there to kind of have some movement to the lines, so don't make them all, you know, do exactly the same thing. Like put some curves in some different places where you might not normally. And so you're getting those really close together. And I kind of usually do a couple, and then you just come in and start kind of filling in. And you don't want them all to be, you know, right up next to one another. You want to give yourself some variety. So don't make them all look exactly the same. Okay. All right, so that one's kind of done. And then also on the inner part of your flower, I usually like to take my thick Sharpie and I will do the outside part a little thicker than I do necessarily the inside part. So once again, it gives you that variety and it really kind of sets apart the middle of the flower. It draws attention to it, gives it some good emphasis. All right, so when you get done doing that, you end up with something that looks like this. So you see how that skinny marker comes into play. You can get really tight with your lines and you see that there's like this movement to it. All right, and if you feel like it, go ahead and you can add a leaf on there. Give me lots of good lines on that. And then my corner piece, I showed you how I drew it before, but I want to show you how I kind of filled this in. So once you have got your circles all drawn, I want you to go back in any place where you might have like little white spaces that are not part of your circle pattern. You're going to go in there with the marker and just fill those in so that everything, you know, is a circle and the rest of it's filled in. So you've got that good positive and negative space. All right. And once again, on this one, you'll see how the petals themselves, the outside of the petal is really, really thick. And then the lines that are more on the inside are just kind of regular. Okay. All right. So we're going to put markers to the side. And then on color today, this is what, I'm going to put this under my work. For your color, what I did when I was kind of selecting color was I kind of went in and I had a color family in mind. I thought that I wanted to do some purples and I thought some teal, green, maybe pinks would be good. So when I was grabbing my colors, I kind of stayed in that family. So I've got purples, I've got greens, some blues, and I've even got some different shades and tints of the pink, okay? So what you're going to do is you will just kind of start. I do want you to kind of think about when you're adding your color, you know, where you might want to bring in, like, where's the light hitting, where's it creating a shadow, and I'll get into that just a tad bit more, but I kind of wanted to plant that seed in your head. So I usually, at the very center of the flower is usually the newest growth, so it's typically a lighter color. And so that's kind of where I started. And I would not do every single petal that color because it's, you know, you're typically not going to find it that way in nature. So I like to, I just kind of come in and I put some purple where I want to. And I'm actually right here, I'm kind of filling in the part that's closest to the center. I'm making it a little bit darker. And then when I get out to the edge, I'm going to color it lightly. So you can control the color by the pressure that you put on your pencil. But also, you know, you've got those other colors that you're going to have as well. So you can create even more tints and shades by just sometimes applying more pressure. So I'm going to come in and I'm just adding. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add just some darker around the edges on some of these. And you're just looking to start kind of creating, you know, some depth in your work. So you want some things to be lighter, some to be darker. If they are underneath something, they're going to be darker because they'll be under another surface and therefore, you know, the light's not going to shine on it quite as much as it would if it was, say, on top. So you just kind of keep going and you can let me come back here. You can come back with some other colors and even end up mixing those colors. So don't be shy about, you know, the colors that you choose. So you can come in and blend different colors. So make it fun, make it really, really colorful. So I'm going to put this one to the side, and I've worked on another one over here. So I'll show you how that one ended up looking. So I've got lots of different tints and shades. And then in this one, I think I'm going to do, and this one actually goes a lot faster than that one. And you do not have to fill in every single space. And you also might want to go back and make, like, shade it in to where it's all filled in with your marker. You can also have some of those. So I'm going to keep working on this and adding some more color while you guys go listen to the quote for today. William Morris, an English textile designer, poet, and novelist, said, "I do not want art for a few any more than education for a few, or freedom for a few." As you guys were listening to the quote, I kind of finished up working on my coloring a little bit. And then the next thing that I want for you to do is you're going to be cutting out your shapes. So typically I like to cut mine off of the big piece of paper first. Just makes it easier. And then you're going to trim around your edges. If you happen to have any spaces, and I'll show you one here in just a second, where like your petals down towards the base of the flower, they kind of, there's space in between there, and you want to show that space. I'll show you a little trick for getting inside those little tight places. And notice that when I was adding my color, I did leave some of my places white, which normally I'm really big into, you know, cover everything. But for this particular project, it's good to have some negative space left showing. All right, so right in here, I have got, this should not be there, okay? So I'm gonna take my paper, and you want to just barely fold it because you don't want a crease in it. And you're gonna take your scissors and kind of give it a little pinch and kind of look to make sure that when you cut, you're not gonna cut anything you need. And then you're just gonna come right back. That gives you like a little opening where you can come in with your scissors and get that little piece out. Now sometimes, even though you've cut yourself that little opening, it'll be kind of tricky still to trim inside there. So if you happen to end up with some white left showing that you don't want, I'm going to leave some just so I can make my point. Just come back in with your marker and just fill in that space, and no one will ever know. It will be our secret. Okay? All right, so, oh, and I've got some little holidays over here too. Okay. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do, break out your glue stick, and we're going to glue. My pencils are invading my workspace. Okay, so you're going to get your piece of scrap paper that hopefully Mom let you borrow. You better ask before, don't forget. And you're going to just coat this with glue, and you want to really give it a good coat. That glue stick's not so hot. There we go, that's a little bit better. And normally I don't like to use glue sticks because I feel like they don't always stick the way I want them to. But in this particular case, because we want this to lay very flat, I don't want to put glue underneath there that might make little bumps in my paper or anything like that. So I'm just going to come in with my glue stick, and we will just hope all that works. All right, and I'm going to flip it over and get lined up here. I want to make sure, I'm going to check both sides because I want to make sure that I get it even on my paper, and I also want to make sure that I get it straight. And sometimes you guys get so excited about getting your paper on there that you don't check those things. So that's that good craftsmanship that all of your art teachers are looking for, and even your classroom teachers are looking for. All right, so we've got that glued down, and the next thing that we're going to be doing is, this is when you're going to get your 3D foam pieces, and we're going to flip your flower over. Now, because of the way we did this one has to go in a corner, okay? So you can go upper corner, you can go lower, you can flip it any way you want, okay? So what I usually like to do is I like to take my 2 pieces and I will just kind of look at them in a couple different locations to see what I like the best. You know, I'll try it over here. Do I want that leaf to be facing up? Do I want the purple to overlap the pink a little? Or, you know, how do I want to arrange things? That's the other thing y'all do. You get so excited to get it glued on there that you don't think about kind of arranging it before you do. So I really liked when the leaf is going up, and I think I'm going to do like this basically, okay? So I'm going to take my corner piece first, I'm going to flip it over, and the trick with these are, they're not tricky. You want to make sure that when you get them on your flower, they don't peek out and show, because it's like supposed to be a secret that they are kind of hovering above your paper. So you don't want to give away the secret by having them show. So make sure that you get them on the inside enough of your paper that they're not going to be popping out. You definitely need them like on the corners and on the edges of things, but you also need some kind of support in the middle. So I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do 2 here in the middle. And the other thing I was going to tell you, if you happen to not have these little sticky, 3D sticky things, the other thing that you can do, and it works just as well, it just takes a little more work on your part, is that you can take your paper, your scrap paper that you have left over, break out that glue, and just cut yourself some little strips of paper, and then fold them over to make like a little donut. And did I get that one? Didn't get that one. And then you can roll those over, and it just makes like, I call them little pillows, because it kind of, it's like a little pillow that holds your head up at night. And so you can make those very easily as well. All right, so I've got it. I want to get it lined up well. And then I'm just going to give it a little push down on a couple places where I have my pieces. And I'm going to be doing the same thing here, okay? All right, now I want to put this to the side. I want to show you a couple things really fast. Here's some variations, okay? All right, so this example, my background's different, still black and white like we talked about before. And on this one, I came back with puffy paint, like the slick paint that you can paint with out of the little tubes. And I just kind of filled in all my circles, and then I came in with like some autumny kind of colors and sprinkled that on the top there. And it looks really cool. It like gives it some dimension and looks really, really neat. And then the other one that I did here, I did this one a little different than my example one, but still. These are, and this is probably not the safest thing in the world, but I had them and thought, hey, I'm going to use those. Same thing, I did my paint, the slick paint, and this time I kind of mixed my colors of slick paint a little bit. And then they're like these little, they're like little glass shavings, and you just kind of sprinkle them in there, and they're like so super sparkly, and they give it some, just a really great look. It's really, really nice and sparkly. It just gave it a really good effect, so I thought it was kind of cool to mention. All right, and then the other thing that I mentioned to you at the beginning of the show were doing like little letters to spell out something. So, you know, you can think of like, just find a little spot where you want to add your little hidden message and give it a little stamp. And I think I'm going to have mine kind of coming down this way. So I'm going to go like that. And here. And my word that I am choosing is happy, because every time I do this project, it just makes me happy. So it just adds some kind of some fun and whimsy that, you know, we were talking about earlier about your flower shapes. So you just can kind of add some little things in there. It gives it a really nice look to it. So those are some possibilities, and that wraps up our show for today. Thank you so much. Now go out and make some amazing art.